So what's really different about cooking on a boat? It's not actually the cooking, but it's how you get to that point. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. And today I'm sharing my thoughts about how provisioning for a boat actually looks different than just regular grocery shopping in a house. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Marine Depot Direct, your source for affordable, quality stainless steel hardware. Upgrade your boat with marine-grade stainless steel hardware and accessories like port lights, deck hatches, through hulls, and much more. Make your boat restoration easy and affordable. Use coupon code BG15 for 15% off your first order. MarineDepotDirect.com. Affordable stainless for your boat. That's MarineDepotDirect. So people ask all the time how cooking on a boat is different. And my general response is that I cook on a boat pretty much the same way that I do in a house. Well, there might be one small difference in that on a boat, I work pretty hard to minimize the dishes, just because doing dishes by hand, as nice and big as my new sink is on board Calypso, I still prefer to spend my time doing things other than doing dishes. But one of the things I did realize the other day when I was provisioning for probably the second time since we moved back on board the boat is what is different is about how I go about my process of going grocery shopping, bringing it to the boat, and then stowing. So I call it the 3 S's of provisioning: shop, schlep, and stow. And the thing that's different really on a boat is the stow part. So shopping. Yep. On land, I have a list, mostly, and I stick to it, mostly. Same with on a boat. Have a list, mostly, and I stick to it, mostly. I do pay a little bit of attention to the kinds of fruits and vegetables that I buy because I don't have a ton of fridge space. So I do spend a little bit of time thinking about that before I just grab whatever veggies look great. The second S is to schlep. Well, sure, on land you have to bring groceries in from the car. And on a boat, you bring groceries back either by foot or dinghy or combination thereof. If you're on the hard on the boat, you definitely need to transport those groceries up the ladder. And then you're dealing with the bags and getting to the store in the first place and all of that. So there's a little bit of something different on a boat with the schlep factor, particularly if you are not living in a marina where you have access to a car all the time. But the big difference is stowing. On land, you bring the groceries in and you put them away. And on the boat, my process is quite a bit more involved. It does help a whole lot if Jeremy, my husband, can actually schlep, bringing the groceries back up the ladder. Right now we're on the hard. If he can bring the bags from the car and bring them up the ladder while I'm working down below, it's really helpful. It is absolutely essential that he's not in the middle of some major project inside the boat on provisioning days. So for example, yesterday I went grocery shopping and Jeremy was working on electrical stuff, and I made a point of checking with him to see if he was going to be able to take a break when I came back, because where he was working on electrical is in the galley and the space that exactly where I needed to be. So a little coordination is really important on provisioning days. My process on the boat for putting the groceries away, the first thing I do is I bring down refrigerated items. So I leave all my groceries up in the cockpit, and then I bring down the things that are refrigerated. When I'm grocery shopping, I try to do my best to keep all the refrigerated items in the same bag so that I just have one bag to bring down to deal with my refrigerated items. Anything that needs to be repackaged, so meat that's in styrofoam or extra packaging, I repack those into Ziploc bags and carefully suck all the extra air out of it. The second thing that I do is I empty out the refrigerator and clean it out. I wipe out any accumulated moisture at the bottom, which we call charter juice, and I throw away the forgotten items that have managed to go bad. And how in the world I managed to lose something in a fridge that's the size and the shape of a cooler, I don't know, but it happens, and it's very strange. So it's really great that every couple of weeks I need to clean out the fridge, clean it, and empty it out, clean it, and de-charter juice it and all the rest of it, so that stuff doesn't really get disgusting. The third thing that I do is I fill the fridge strategically. I've got a top-loading refrigerator. If you have a regular front-loading refrigerator, the way some boats do these days, you don't have to think about it quite in this same way. But I will say the strategic aspect is understanding where the super cold areas are of your fridge. And you probably have them even in a regular stand-up fridge. So be strategic and put the things that need to be kept the coldest against the coldest areas. I fill the fridge strategically and layering the things to take advantage of the coldest areas. So the coldest areas go at the bottom. And I make sure that the vegetables are in the middle away from the plates. There are plates kind of around all four edges. I try to keep certain items in the same place in every time I refill the fridge. For example, we're used to and are accustomed to having the half and half for our morning coffee in the front left corner at the top of the fridge, which means there's no hunting around for it and looking for it because that's something that we get out every single morning. We want it to be in a place that makes sense and is obvious and the same. I will say that I often have fruits and vegetables in particular that don't fit into the refrigerator, at least the first few days after a provisioning run. Obviously, as we eat through, more space becomes available in the fridge. Understanding and prioritizing what must be refrigerated helps me keep waste to a minimum. And then I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, I have to eat up these things. And that's where menu planning comes in. I don't do a lot of strict menu planning, as you might be aware of or remember, but I do try to plan my meals based on what I need to use up or what's exciting and available. For example, these days, there is an awful lot of tomato eating that's happening in our life, and I love it. Sometimes we have to eat the same thing 4 meals in a row or the same fruit or vegetable because we need to eat through it and there's not a ton of space in the fridge to keep extra things. So think about that. The next thing that I do after I've taken care of the refrigerator part, so the refrigerated stuff, because generally I want to make sure that comes out of the heat as quickly as possible, then I deal with the rest of the groceries. I'll bring the next bags down and I lay them out on the floor. I repackage anything that needs repacking. And what that means is things that are in paper like flour or sugar or pasta or rice, I actually repackage them within their already existing bags or containers, and I put them into Ziploc bags that I use over and over and over and over again, I promise you, but I repackage them in there so that there's some protection against moisture and humidity and spillage. I do try to organize the groceries on the floor in general categories because that's how I stow them in the lockers. So I'll put canned goods in one section of the floor, and I'll put pasta and rice in another one, baking goods in another one, and that sort of thing. Because then when I'm opening the lockers to stow them away, I'm not searching all over the place on the floor for my groceries to see what goes in there. There's very little that I like less than stashing all the groceries away and finishing in one locker and moving on to the next one and then finding that I need to open that first locker again to put something else away. There you go. Sometimes I do have to pull some things out of the locker to be able to stuff more stuff into it, because often when you're reorganizing, it can be easier to stash things if you take things out, which is another reason that I take everything out of the refrigerator to repackage it. But most of the time it's a whole lot simpler than that. A suggestion is that you mix up how you put things in. So don't put all the tomatoes in first and then you put the canned corn on top. But have a good selection within the locker of where things are going away. And then the last step, almost, is to take all the trash together, trash it away, throw it away, put away any cushions that you needed to move to access the storage lockers, pour yourself a glass of water, pat yourself on the back for a job well done, and now you get to figure out just what's for dinner. I can't wait till we're swapping tips in person when we get a chance to share in Anchorage sometime. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. There's a link to both of our emails in the show notes. And we also really love it when you share us with your friends. Help get the word out about the Boat Galley podcast, because after all, Nothing is better than the sense of community that comes when we all share things that work for us. Have a great week.